Welcome back to our premium buying guide, and today's video we will be discussing them red, white, and blue good old Uncle Sam premium American aircraft right out the farm. Get them now while they're smoking hot. My current plan for the rest of these buying guides is to break up US, Germany, Russia, Great Britain, and Japan into their own guides, and then putting China, Italy, France, and Sweden into their own video at the end. I'm going to try and release these on the off days that we put up normal content. Before we get started, I would like to once again remind you that we are a War Thunder affiliate, and if you use the link listed in the description or in the pinned comment below, on your next War Thunder purchase, 3% of what you spend will be sent back to the channel, which helps us make content like this. So thank you for considering that. And up first we have Rasmussen's P-36A. Before we start talking about the plane, we have a very complicated way of explaining how you can get this aircraft. If you're on Steam or War Thunder, you can get it for $4.99 with the US beginner pack, which will come with the M3A1 USMC premium tank we talked about in the tank guide, 120,000 Silver Lions, and 7 days of premium. Pretty straightforward so far, right? If you're on Xbox, you get the same pack for $4.99, but it will also come with 500 Golden Eagles, so you get a little bit more there. If you're on PlayStation, you get the P-36A free for being a PlayStation Plus member. This aircraft is named after Phil Rasmussen, who was actually stationed at Pearl Harbor during the attack. He ran to his P-36, jumped in the aircraft in his pajamas, loaded it with ammo, and took off to fight the Japanese with just a handful of other P-36s. He engaged up to a dozen Japanese aircraft. He was able to shoot down 1-0, and by the time he was done, he had no brakes, no rudder, no tail wheel, a jammed 30 cal, and was able to land safely. If you ever get a chance to go to the Air Force Museum at Dayton, Ohio, you'll actually see a mannequin dressed up in pajamas getting into a P-36. So Ham, what is the difference between this P-36A and the one you'll find normally in the tech tree?
They're actually the exact same aircraft. P-36 has a decent armament of 150 cal and 130 cal, which at low tier tank RB can do a lot of damage to the other low tier tanks, mainly by shooting through the top with the 50 cal, which makes this aircraft a very good low tier plane to bring into a tank RB game.
Sorry that I forgot to mention earlier that Hambone was joining us today. There was a lot going on to get through to get started. For me personally, I really like how the P-36 flies, fights. That 150 cal and 30 cal is pretty devastating at a battering of 1.3. I really like the plane. It's very historic. It's a very storied plane. And for $4.99, or if you're on PlayStation, you can get it for free if you have that Plus membership. It's a buy for me.
Yeah, I'd give it a buy. Yeah, if you're a higher tier player, there's no real purpose in buying this aircraft. Only if you're starting the game is it worth maybe picking this up and using it.
Up next, we have Galer's F3 F2, which is available in-game for 250 Golden Eagles. I happen to love this Grumman biplane. Grumman biplanes were a mainstay of the US Navy in the mid-1930s. This aircraft has one 50 caliber machine gun and one 30 cal, which makes it pretty potent at a battle rating of 1.3. This is the exact same aircraft that you'll find in the tech tree, just like the P-36. The reason why this aircraft is called Galer's F3 F2 is because Bob Galer, who was the pilot, attempted to land on the USS Saratoga in 1940 and was forced to ditch the aircraft. In 1988, it was discovered by a US submarine, and about a year or two later, it was brought back up, it was restored, and is now on display at the National Naval Museum in Pensacola, Florida.
This vehicle is exactly the same as the one in the tech tree, though the cost comes from the skin, the name, and the premium booster that you get with it.
For 250 Golden Eagles, I feel that is a really strong aircraft. It's a lot of fun to play. Even me being a level 100, I still from time to time like to take out the F3 F2 and have some fun. So for me, it's a strong buy. I'm a sucker for Grumman aircraft.
Yeah, I see no reason why, if you're a starting player, that you cannot get this aircraft. Premium that you get on this aircraft is really good, and it's usable all the way up to rank 2.
After that, we have the B-10B, which is a battle rating 1.3 US bomber. I'll real quickly get to the history of this guy, and then we'll discuss it in game. If you're not familiar with the B-10B, at its introduction, it was one of the fastest aircraft in the world. This is where a lot of US bomber doctrine came from, was based off this aircraft. This thing was a technological marvel. Sadly for it though, aviation at that time was moving quite quickly, and by the time World War II started, it was a relic. It primarily saw service overseas in places like China, and it did not do well. So the B-10B in-game, you'll see the blue and yellow paint scheme. That is primarily a pre-war paint scheme you'll see with a lot of US aircraft. It has a very good bomb load, it flies very well, and it has 3 30 caliber machine guns for its defensive armament. So for 400 Golden Eagles, is this a good buy, Ham?
I think it's a really good buy. This aircraft, with its 2,000-pound bomb, is one of only, I believe, 3 other aircraft at its BR that carry such a similarly destructive payload. So if you were to bring this plane into Tank RB with its 2,000-pound bomb, some poor little stern panzer might find a 2,000-pound bomb sitting in his lap.
So this plane is a very strong buy for myself as well. It works very well in Air RB and in Ground Forces RB, so you'll get a lot of use out of it dual purpose. Up next we have Thach's F2A1. It is available right now in game for 400 Golden Eagles, or on Xbox for $19.99. That'll come with the M5A1 premium we talked about, 2,000 Golden Eagles, 120,000 server lines, and 15 days of premium. It is also the plane that you'll get in the PS starter pack, which comes with the M3A1 and all that stuff we talked about for $4.99. Kind of complicated. Thach's F2A1 is named after the infamous Wildcat pilot named John Thach. That is the pilot who came up with Thach and Weave. Pretty infamous tactic used in World War II in the Pacific Theater against the Zero. I was kind of confused why they put in Thach's Buffalo instead of Thach's Wildcat. On the side of the plane, you'll see Felix the Cat running with a bomb. That was the squadron insignia that would be on all aircraft. So for 400 Golden Eagles and the 2 packs we mentioned, would this be a good buy, Ham?
This plane is an absolute beast in all sense of the word. With 3 50 caliber machine guns and 1 30 caliber machine gun, this thing well hits beyond its weight class. At a BR of 2.3, the Thach's Buffalo complements any Tank RB lineup of Stuarts and other things. In the air, it dominates the skies in the hands of a competent pilot.
It's insane that a 2.3 aircraft has 3 50 caliber machine guns. With the premium booster, this is an absolute buy for me.
And is a very strong buy for me as well.
The Buffalo has a very mixed history in real life. Brewster was not necessarily the greatest company, as they got in some trouble. The Buffalo was a below average performer in the US Navy. I know the Finnish had a lot of success with it, but that's primarily due to them doing a lot of weight reduction and modifications to get the most out of the aircraft. But in game, the F2A1 flies like a dream, and it is a very, very strong buy for me. Up next, we have the US captured Key 43 Premium. It's for sale for 1,000 Golden Eagles. The reason why you'll see a Key 43 with US markings on it is that the US had intelligence programs that would take these aircraft, and they were looking for different things. Performance, handling of course, and they would also be studying things like manufacturing processes and materials used. They were not typically taking these aircraft up to fight the Japanese with. They wanted to learn what the Japanese were building. To my knowledge and my understanding is that this aircraft was recovered somewhere near Australia and had a lot of Australian help to bring this one to flight.
Being a Japanese aircraft, the maneuverability is generally given, but the lack of armor and the high rate of fire and low mass of the guns makes it a little difficult in killing and surviving. This plane you're mainly buying for the matchmaker. Being in the US tech tree, you are no longer having to face US aircraft. If you were a person who enjoyed the Japanese Key 43 and is starting to grind the American tech tree, I would buy it, but otherwise I would wait for a sale.
I actually really like the Key 43s, and I will try to be as quick and concise as I can talking about this thing. A little bit of back history for it. The Key 43 was designed and produced to replace the Key 27, and part of the requirements that were listed for the Key 43 was that it had to beat the maneuverability of a Key 27, which is kind of ridiculous for a bigger, heavier plane to do. One of the ways that its designers got around this was by making the tail super skinny, and also giving it one of my favorite things, Fowler flaps. You can find Fowler flaps also on the British Firefly, not the tank, the plane, and those help aircraft turn extremely well, which gives a huge advantage. Key 43 is small, super nimble, and a lot of fun to fly. The Key 43 too has, I would call, subpar armament. I'm not really super crazy about the Japanese 12.7 HO3s, and at 500 rounds, that's 250 per gun, it could use a lot more ammo. Now what makes me a little bit less excited for this aircraft, it is the American Key 43, and generally when I buy aircraft premiums, I like them to be a little bit more unique, and if they're not unique, they better perform like hell. If you look in the US tech tree, there are a lot of strong aircraft at this rank, and for that reason, it is a wait for sale for me. There's nothing wrong with this aircraft, I just would rather play it in the Japanese tech tree, and save some Golden Eagles. Up next we have the recently added YP-38, which is a premium pack that you can find on War Thunder, Steam, PlayStation, Xbox for $14.99, and it will come with 15 days of premium and 850 Golden Eagles. This was the aircraft that replaced the XP-38G and the American Pacific Pack, I believe it's called, or the American Pacific Campaign Pack. I was personally happy to see the XP-38G disappearing from the game, not because it's a bad aircraft or anything, just from a historical non-fiction standpoint, the XP-38G never existed. The white P-38 though did, and it was a pre-production version of the P-38. It has two 30 caliber machine guns and two 50 caliber machine guns, so it's a reduction of the normal 50 caliber machine guns you'll find on a production P-38, and it has a 37mm cannon on it with 15 rounds of ammo. It does not have the normal 20mm cannon that you may be used to. And for that reason, I'm going to say it is a not buy. I very excitedly picked this aircraft up and was hoping for great things, and man was I disappointed. The 37mm cannon and the lack of 50 cals really makes this thing struggle. A P-38 is typically set up for boom and zoom and high speed attacks, and it's just very difficult to get the 15 rounds of 37mm on target. You have to loiter behind something way longer than you're typically used to, and the variation of how the 37mm fires is just too drastic to accurately and consistently hit something, unless you're firing at like a Wellington or something huge. If you are going to pick this up, I caution it only for the more veteran and experienced War Thunder pilots who want a challenge.
This is definitely an aircraft you might want to wait and save your money on and invest it somewhere else. So for me, it's a not buy.
I am an absolute P-38 diehard fan, and it pains me to say this, but learn from my mistakes. Up next, we have the Key 61, which is very similar to the Key 43 I talked about. You can even see on the side of the cockpit where it says Technical Air Intelligence Center. This was an aircraft that would have been recovered and restored to the best of their capability to be flown and tested. The Key 61 will always have a special place in my heart. I've had a lot of great memories and fun times with this aircraft. That being said, this variant of the Key 61 is not my favorite. I really do not like those four 12.7mm Japanese machine guns. There's a later variant of this guy that has MG151s that I find freaking awesome. And at a battle rating of 3.3, it doesn't really get me excited.
With the same guns as the Key 43, it suffers the same problems. That of a high rate of fire and low burst mass, meaning, again, you'll have a hard time killing other aircraft. So for this is the not buy for me.
Yeah, it's a not buy for me as well. Once again, it's just not an exciting enough aircraft for me to tell you to spin the Golden Eagles on. Up next, we have the XP-55, the Ascender. I'm very excited about this aircraft. This is a very unique aircraft, and the Ascender will set you back 3,900 Golden Eagles. This aircraft was designed and built by Curtiss Wright. There was 3 prototypes built. It did not perform particularly well. 2 of them crashed for different reasons. The aircraft did not like to take off very well. And it also had this little problem of when inverted, you couldn't get it back. So it had some really bad handling characteristics. The program was pretty much shelved in 1944 due to emerging jet technology. If you would like to see this aircraft, it is on display at the Kalamazoo Air Zoo. Before I hand over to Ham, I'm going to real quickly talk about it in game. It has 2 50 caliber machine guns, 2 20mm cannons at a battle rating of 4.0. This thing can be devastating. It flies. It's hard to explain how this thing flies. I usually just say the word, "Here comes the UFO." But it just does things that will shock you and appall you. And for 3,900 Golden Eagles, it's pretty expensive, but I would say buy.
If you're unlucky enough to find yourself on the receiving end of those 2 20mm and 2 50 caliber machine guns, you're gonna be sent back to the hangar very quickly.
They're all mounted in the nose. It is this one giant burst mass that will liquidate anything in front of it.
From personal experience, being on the receiving end of this aircraft, it is a very difficult fight. For the most part, they are always above you because of their better than excellent climb rate, and the strategies that the pilots take usually involve boom and zooming, so it is very hard to defeat this aircraft in a one-on-one engagement. So for as much as it hurts me knowing that I'm going to have to see more of these in the air, I would recommend buying this aircraft.
It's a strong recommendation for me again, just due to the fact that it's a strong performer, strong armament, and it's also very unique. You don't see many aircraft in a game that have the pusher prop configuration.
I believe the only other one is the J7W.
And it has a canard, and that's fun to say.
Canards. That's a funny word.
Up next, we have the American captured A6M2-0. You can pick it up for 1,300 Golden Eagles. It's at a battle rating of 3.3. The most infamous recovered A6M2 was the one that we found in the Aleutian Islands. Once again, it's the same thing like I talked about with the Key 43 and the Key 61. In game, it'll fly and perform exactly like the Thach A-6M2. So for 1,300 golden eagles, once again, it's just not enough to make me excited to tell you to buy it at full price. I do on rare occasion take this guy out, and it is a very capable aircraft. Unfortunately for it, there's a lot of great aircraft between 2.7 and 3.7 in the US Tech tree, and those guys grab my attention before this does. So unless you're an absolute die-hard A-6M2 pilot, I would have to say this is a wait for sell. It's a great aircraft. I would just once again rather fly it in the Japanese Tech tree.
Just like the Key 61 or the Key 43, this A-6M2, you're buying it mostly for the matchmaking, but unlike the previous two, with their mainly 12.7mm armaments, this has the two 20mm guns, which gives it a better edge on killing. Still, it's not enough to make me tell you to spend your money on this aircraft, so I would wait for a sale.
Up next, we have the XP-50, which is a very unique aircraft. You can pick it up for 1,750 golden eagles. This was a Grumman prototype that competed with a version of the P-38 prototype and a couple other companies. The program was eventually canceled, but the XP-50 kind of lives on through another aircraft, and I'll get to that in a minute. Grumman only built one prototype, and it was lost in 1941 due to a turbo supercharger explosion. In game, you thankfully don't have to worry about that. It has two 20mm and two 50 caliber machine guns packed in the nose, so just like the Ascender, it has a lot of heavy hitting armament. It climbs and flies like a demon, and for me, it's gonna have to be a buy. And before I hand over to Hambone, a lot of the stuff that they learned about the XP-50 during its development was put into the F7F Tiger Cat.
From personal experience again, like with the XP-55, this aircraft is an absolute king of the sky. With the two 20mm cannons and the two 50 caliber machine guns at its BR, the 3.7, this thing can absolutely destroy anything it sees. Its maneuverability, climb rate, and overall performance makes this thing a top dog of its class.
It's bewildering. I'll say it. It is bewildering.
Bewildering when you get shot down by it.
I've seen these things in the past climb up like they were the Apollo Saturn rocket.
Oh, you find a couple of them in space for sure. Currently, we don't see a lot of these at 3.7, but I think there needs to be a lot more.
You think there needs to be a lot more? Are you trying to give the Germans a heart attack?
They've had it easy for too long.
In all seriousness, this is a great aircraft, and I would highly recommend it as a buy. If you're a newer player trying to get used to War Thunder ARB, this would be a fantastic aircraft to learn how to boom and zoom in, while being very forgiving. Up next, we have the P-61A1, which you can get in-game for 2,500 golden eagles. And before I go on a huge tangent, I absolutely love the Black Widow. There's actually one being restored in real life that I can't wait to visit when it's done. So please understand, when I say do not buy this aircraft, it's coming from a place of love. The P-61A1 is the wrong Black Widow to get. You want to do everything in your power to get the P-61C1 that's in the tech tree at a 4.0 battle rating. And if you want, I would say talisman that one over buying the premium. So let me talk about the A1 variant itself real quick, and then we'll talk about why it's bad. There was only 45 A1s built. The last 7, and moving forward all the way to the P-61B11, there was no top turret. The reason being is that top turret and fire control mechanism are very similar to what you find on the B-29, and the B-29 was a much higher priority for the US military. So that's kind of what makes this aircraft unique, is it's an A model with a turret. Now when you compare it to the C variant that's in the tech tree, this plane has no WEP, and it's also about 800 horsepower less per engine. And you feel every ounce of that.
It also carries no bombs, which means this plane has absolutely no ground forces capabilities whatsoever.
I don't know what Ham feels, but for 2,500 golden eagles, it's a strong do not buy.
Yeah, you hit this thing on the head with that one. The no WEP, no bombs, decreased engine power, it makes this thing an absolute horrendous thing to fly. Even with the 50% discount, it's still cheaper to get a talisman for the P-61C, with only a cost of 0.3 BR higher.
So for those reasons, it is a strong do not buy from us.
Don't buy this thing.
Up next, we have the BTD-1, which you can find in-game for 1,750 golden eagles. Or as I mentioned in the US Ground Forces Premium Guide, there is an Xbox pack called Full Alert Bundle for $49.99 that comes with a T-14, the PT-556, 1,000 golden eagles, 7 days of premium, and 120,000 Silver Lions. That's a hell of a pack on Xbox only. So before I talk about if it's a buy or not buy, I want to discuss the history of the BTD. This aircraft was supposed to replace the Helldiver and the Dauntless. One of the big differences from the Helldiver and Dauntless that you'll notice is that this is a single-seat aircraft. There's no navigator, bombardier, turret gunner, nothing. It is a one-man show. They also added more armor, more fuel, wing pylons so they could add bombs and rockets, as well as fitting on a second torpedo underneath. So this thing was a huge upgrade over the Helldiver. I'm not saying that's hard, but it is a big upgrade over the Helldiver. They were able to build about 30 of these aircraft. About 28 were delivered. Unfortunately for the BTD, it was nearing the end of the war and the contract was canceled because the US no longer needed them. Ed Hyman was in Washington, D.C. at the time, and he said, is there still money available in the program? They said yes, and he made a two-seater version of this guy, which eventually became the Sky Raider. So from the BTD's death, blossomed the Sky Raider, which is pretty cool.
This thing in game is a jack of all trades. It carries bombs, it carries magnetic mines, it carries torpedoes. This thing can basically do whatever you throw at it. You can take it into naval, you can take it in the ARB, you can take it into tank RB, and it will just absolutely dominate. For such a small aircraft, the twin torpedoes is quite a unique thing, and the 2,000-pound bomb it carries can do a lot of damage.
It's also got two twin-motor cannons that we kind of glanced over.
Yeah, those are important too.
It's very unique to find a dive/torpedo bomber that has heavy armament like that.
This is probably the most well-armed dive bomber, torpedo bomber you may find.
So would this be a buy, wait, or do not buy for you, Hambone?
I would definitely buy this thing. The benefits you get from it are just way too great to pass this thing up.
For me, it hits all the right marks. Payload, armament, maneuverability, power. It's unique. It's Ed Heinemann inspired. It's an absolute buy for me. Up next, we have the BF-109F4 American Premium, which you can find in-game for 1,300 Golden Eagles. I believe in-game somewhere it says that these aircraft were lost, ran out of fuel, and were forced down behind enemy lines, and that is why they're captured. The U.S. would have flown these, tested them, and pulled them apart and see how they're manufactured. There should be no surprises about this guy. It has the 20mm MG151 cannon in the middle of the prop hub, two 7.92 MG17s and the cowling. The only thing that I believe it's missing is the underarmament, like the gun pods and the bombs are not available.
It's a little disappointing being a 109 and not having the gun pods, but I know that 109s can perform very well even without the gun pods.
Some would say they perform better without the gun pods.
I find that very debatable.
I know I'm in the minority, but I will always stand for 109s with no gun pods.
I'll fight you for gun pods. There needs to be a gun pod union. The 109 overall is just a great aircraft. I believe it's one of the more maneuverable 109s, and at a battle rating of 4.0, this aircraft cannot be turned down, so I would say it's a buy.
For me, the E and F variants of the BF-109 are my favorites. The F4 is a very strong aircraft. It still doesn't make me super excited that it's a capture premium, but for 1,300 Golden Eagles, if you like BF-109 F4s and the German tech tree, for the price and what you get, it's a good deal. So for me, it's a very on-the-fence buy. Up next, we have a premium that you can only find on Xbox, the F4U-4B VMF 214, which is available for $29.99 and comes with 15 days of premium and 1,000 Golden Eagles. The F4U-4 was the later World War II variant of the Corsair. The F4U-4B had four 20mm A&M 3 cannons, which is different from the F4U-1C that has the A&M M2 cannons, which were quite problemsome. The F4U-4 was the vision of what Vought wanted their Corsair to be, and a lot of the teething issues that the earlier Corsairs were famous for were figured out and dealt with at this point. So besides the cannons, it also has 8 HFAR rockets it can drop, 2 1,000-pound bombs, or 2 500s and 4 250s, I think. So it has quite the ground force payload as well. So this is a good aircraft for ARB and in ground forces. If I can make a recommendation, if you buy, let's say, the M18 Black Cat, and then this premium, and you run the two side by side, that's a lot of profit, bringing in that change. Up next, we have the A-26C 45DT, which you can currently, right now, only find on PlayStation. It is for sale for $19.99 and will come with 15 days of premium and 2,000 Golden Eagles. Ham, do you know who designed the A-26?
Let me guess. Ed Heinemann.
Good old Ed.
I knew it.
The A-26 was designed as a multi-purpose aircraft. It of course replaced the A-20 in its role, but there was also a contract that it competed for, which was an escort fighter for the B-29s, believe that or not.
Wait, really?
Yeah, it competed with the F-82.
That's kind of funny.
It is kind of funny. Ed Hyman had a philosophy when it came to aircraft design, and it was take the biggest engine you can and build the aircraft around that.
This aircraft is no longer available for other consoles or systems, and so being a PlayStation exclusive, you have a lot of power in your hands. I remember seeing these a long time ago, and they were already rare back then. Yeah, take this advantage. Yeah, buy this vehicle.
First off, I'd like to apologize. I'm kind of losing my voice, but I'll do the best I can. This is a glass nose variant of the A-26, which means it only has, I'd say only, has 8 50 caliber machine guns, 4 in each wing, 2,600 rounds of 50 cal, so that's quite a bit of ammo. It has 2 twin 50 caliber turrets, one on the top, one on the bottom. They're both remotely controlled by the gunner that you see sitting in that glass canopy in the back. Where this guy really shines is its armament. It can carry 14 H-4 rockets, 20 100-pound bombs, 10 500s, 4 100s, or 2 2000s. This plane's kind of a jack of all trades. It's pretty quick for an attacker, very good defensive armament. You have decent enough frontal armament that you can possibly fend off a fighter or attack something, as well as very easily strafe ground targets. The bomb payload makes it very usable in ground RB. Is it the best attacker War Thunder? Honestly, probably not. It is a very unique, storied historical aircraft that served well through Vietnam and saw a lot of service in the private sector after that. The A-26 in real life, once again, was a super impressive aircraft. And if you don't know much about it, I challenge you to... It's well worth your time to do some digging and read about this fantastic machine. Up next, we have the P-51D-20 NA, which stands for North American. That's where the aircraft was built, North American Aviation. It is at a battle rating of 4.3 and is for sale for $29.99 on War Thunder, PlayStation, and Xbox. It'll come with 2,000 Golden Eagles and 15 days of premium. The main differences between the D-20 and the D-5 Mustang is going to be that dorsal fin that you can see on the back near the rudder. That will help with a little bit of stabilization issues that the early Mustang had. You may also find a little bit of performance difference, but it will fly very similar to the P-51D5 and the Tech Tree. If you like P-51Ds, this is a strong buy. If you find these things difficult and unwieldy to fly, you'll find the same issues with the D-20. And what I mean by that is to fly the P-51Ds successfully, you generally have to use a boom and zoom discipline. You can have some luck turn finding and at low altitude and stuff, but the P-51D really wants to be above 18,000 feet and use speed to its advantage. For the price, I would give this aircraft a buy.
Yeah, I would agree with that statement. In-game, the D-20 performs better than a D-5, but at the same battle rating, which means you'll have an upper hand against the air enemies. So yeah, I would buy this thing.
P-51's the Cadillac of the sky, according to Christian Bale.
P-51, Cadillac of the sky. I remember that scene.
Empire of the Sun.
Yeah.
Up next, we have the XA-38 Grizzly, which was designed by Beech Aircraft. There were 2 prototypes built. This thing has the same engines as the B-29, and it actually tested and did pretty well. The only reason it wasn't put into mass production was that the US military's priorities were shifting, and they didn't feel there was a use for this aircraft. You can find it in-game for 3,850 Golden Eagles. It has a 75mm M10 cannon planted in its nose with 20 rounds ammunition. It also has 2 forward-facing 50 caliber machine guns on the nose, and 2 50 caliber turrets, one on the top and one on the bottom, that are both remotely controlled. But wait, there's more. It can carry 4 100-pound bombs, 4 250s, or 4 500s. So it's not enough to impale your enemy with a 75mm cannon, you can also bomb them on your way out.
Because you know that 75 didn't hurt him enough.
This aircraft isn't necessarily my most favorite thing to fly, but I've seen a lot of people have success with it in ground forces.
I think it's really on and off. You could have luck with it and get some kills, but then you can also not have luck and get shot down immediately.
I would call it inconsistent. I personally I'm not a huge fan of it. For 3,850 Golden Eagles, I don't feel it does well in ARB. I've tried so hard to make this thing successful at ARB, and I just personally can't make it happen. So for me, it's kind of one-trick pony in ground RB. And like Ham said, you're going to have probably mixed results with it. It's a wait for sale for me if you have to have it.
At the BR, it fits well with other tank RB lineups with Shermans and whatnot, but it doesn't, it's inconsistent, and 75 is not, where am I going with this? Yeah, this is not a plane you definitely need immediately. There's other planes similar to it already in the tech tree, like the PBJ-1H. Of course, that one's not as cool as this one. This is definitely a wait for sale plane.
I just don't find the 75mm cannons and ground RB to be consistent and effective enough for me to pick it over bombs.
Yeah, you definitely have to have a very large skill set to be able to use that 75mm effectively.
So not that I hate the aircraft, and it flies quite well. I just think you can do better for your money. Like a P-47.
There is the P-47. Put a talisman on that, a quarter of the cost.
Up next, we have the bright red FW-190A8, which is an American captured FW-190, of course. You can get it in-game for 4,900 Golden Eagles. I think it's very fair to say that every version of the Anton FW-190 is a very strong competitor. This aircraft has 4 MG-151 cannons, which is punishing armament, fantastic roll rate, good energy retention, can be a little bit difficult to fly, but overall is a really good aircraft in-game. So I did some digging trying to figure out which aircraft did they base this in-game model off of, and the best that I can tell was that there was a FW-190A8 being flown over Belgium in January of 1945. It was hit by flak and was forced to land at an airfield. 404 Squadron took this plane over, painted it bright red, and it was stated that they did not fly it. The pictures that I've seen have it stationary with signs like keep off or don't touch. When 404 Squadron left Belgium, they did not take the plane with them, so it was abandoned. Now for me personally, would I recommend this as a buy? Probably not. Honestly, I'm going to say it's a do not buy. I like the FW-190s, but for the price of 4,900 Golden Eagles, that's a lot to ask for a kind of, I'll say it, copy and paste plane that doesn't have a strong real-life aircraft that I can point to. Even at 50% off, it would still be 2,450 Golden Eagles.
Personally, I enjoy the Focke-Wulf A8 in the German tech tree, but I don't know if I'd want to spend that amount of money for this aircraft in the American tech tree. There are other aircraft at the same BR that could be much better, like the P-47N, and I don't have to pay premium for that. So really this aircraft seems like a wait for buy or just do not buy for me.
Up next, we have the Spitfire LF Mk IXc. Me and this aircraft have a very long history. When I first started playing a lot of ARB, this aircraft was the must-own UFO. It decimated all. I believe it's gone through several redos in terms of name, variants, and other stuff I can't even keep track of at this point. You can find it in-game for 6,900 Golden Eagles. If you're asking why a Spitfire is in the US tech tree, believe it or not, US pilots actually flew Spitfires on quite a few occasions, either being loaned to the RAF or Spitfires being loaned to the US Army. These aircraft were used in replacement of the P-39s that the British didn't feel were quite up to the job, or they were used in roles like recon. So you actually find quite a few US Spitfires that were painted blue to hide against the sky. Now if you're curious what the Spitfire LF means versus the Spitfire F that you will find, the LF means that it has a Merlin 66, and the F I believe has a Merlin 61, so it's a different engine. For 6,900 Golden Eagles, it is a huge price to ask, and the game has changed a lot since this aircraft was introduced. So, right now, I'm going to give it a do not buy.
Yeah, this is definitely going to be a not buy for me, sadly. Although the Spitfire, maybe many people may like the Spitfire and think that being in the US tech tree, it may have other advantages. Sadly, I don't think those are really good enough reason to get this thing.
It's a super strong performer. It's just way too much they're asking.
Yeah, for the price tag, 6,900 Golden Eagles, it's too much.
Up next, we have the A2D1, the Sky Shark, which was built by Douglas. You can find it in-game for 4,890 Golden Eagles. In real life, there was 12 of these aircraft built, 2 prototypes, 10 pre-productions. This thing, as you would expect, is a turboprop like the Wyvern. It was designed and built to replace the Skyraider, but due to a ton of technical difficulties, a lot of them being in the engine. In-game, this aircraft has a battle rating of 7.0. It has 4 20mm T-31 cannons, totaling 800 rounds of ammunition. Where this aircraft really shines is its munitions it can carry. I will real quickly go through them for you. 20 250-pound bombs, 20 H-4 rockets, 10 500-pound bombs, 2 1000s, 2 2000s, 2 2000s and 8 500s, or 2 2000s and 20 H-4 rockets. Also, there's 2 torpedoes that can go underneath that as well. Personally, it's not my favorite aircraft to fly just due to its handling, but if you play a lot of 7.0 US Ground Force tanks, this aircraft is an absolute must-buy, or if you're looking to play an attacker role in ARB. But if you're going to pick this up, I would primarily get it for ground forces. And at being 4,890 Golden Eagles, it's a pretty good value, I feel.
Personally, I can't count how many times I've had this thing drop its full 500-pound payload on me in Tank RB. It is just an absolute unit of an aircraft. I think this thing, despite its BR and despite what it may seem like a price tag, this thing actually is a buy for me. I think if you got the money and you're looking for something to complement your Tank RB lineup, I think this thing would definitely fit the bill.
The next two aircraft we're going to talk about are kind of a package deal. You have the F-89B at 7,540 Golden Eagles, and then you have the F-89D at 3,770 Golden Eagles. And you can't get the B without buying the D. That sounds really weird. Its purpose was to defend against Soviet bombers coming over the Arctic Circle.
I think I actually saw one of these when I went to Pima. I saw the nuclear air-to-air missile that it got.
The F-89B is armed with 6 20mm cannons, quite devastating. Has those gigantic tip tanks on the end, which gives it more feel. It's a unique looking aircraft. It's hard for me to give this thing a real rating. It's really expensive, 7,540 Golden Eagles. I'm kind of speechless to talk about it, Ham. I don't know what to say. Because if you want the D version, you have to buy this one, right? So we have to give out a recommendation on whether it's worth paying through this one to get to the other one, right?
I would just add that price of this vehicle just onto the F-89D and just call it that. Because this vehicle is basically just nothing, in my opinion.
I would say it's a below performer at 7.7 and ARB.
You'll find a lot of other aircraft that will bully this thing.
So let's jump over to the F-89D. So this Scorpion has 104 Mighty Mouse rockets packed on the wingtips, which is quite absurd. This aircraft had quite a bit of technology going on. It had a fire control system that would allow it to target other aircraft and then give a lead indicator on where to fire the rockets. That's right, these rockets were meant to shoot down bombers. The reason why rockets have been experimented with on shooting down bombers, the Germans did a little bit of this too, is that you can fire rockets at a further distance, which is safer for the pilot and the plane, and it has a much more devastating effect when you hit it on target.
Those rockets on the wingtip are proximity airburst. They won't do a lot of damage, but because you have 104 of them, and if you fire a lot of them, plane that you're shooting them at is not going to have a good day. Let's just say that.
Tried it in Ground Forces RB, and I find it quite difficult for a few reasons. Those rockets are placed so far out in the wing that the convergence is super far in front of you. So generally, I get a little bit too close, and you'll see the rockets hit left and right of what you're trying to hit, because there's not enough distance for the rockets to converge on target. That's kind of number one problem with using Ground RB. And two, the Mighty Mouses just don't have enough punch at 7.7 to kill a majority of the targets that you're trying to hit. It's a really cool aircraft. I love these things, but it's tough to find a place for it in War Thunder. In ARB, I would only recommend it to the more experienced veteran player who's looking for a real challenge. This is a luxury buy.
Very luxurious.
And for that reason, I'm going to say do not buy for both aircraft unless you 100% know what you're getting into and you accept what they are.
I would agree. This price tag is just a little too much for if you want to just get into the game. Someone who has played a lot of ARB or Tank RB and knows a thing or two because they've seen a thing or two. This is definitely you'd have to like write an essay about it and kind of know what you're getting into. But if you have the money, go for it.
It's definitely cool they added both these aircraft to the game. I just don't feel they bring a lot of value to the player other than they're unique. And the last premium that is currently for sale at the moment is the F-86 F-35 premium pack, which is available on War Thunder, PlayStation, Xbox for $49.99. Comes with 2,000 Golden Eagles and 15 days of premium. On the side of the aircraft, you'll see it says U.S. Air Force Sky Blazers. The Sky Blazers were a U.S. Air Force aerobatic team based out of Germany and primarily toured throughout Europe. They were primarily made up of pilots from the 36 Fighter Wing and flew various different aircraft throughout the years. The team started in 1949 and the team was disbanded in early 1962.
The F-86 has a very particular playstyle, and when this thing was first introduced, a lot of people thought this would be their gateway to top-tier jets, and so they bought this thinking this was going to be a really easy plane to fly, and it's not. This plane is definitely for a very experienced pilot who's played a lot of top-tier jets and knows how to fly them appropriately. This is not a plane for someone who's looking to grind through their American tech tree because it's like almost like a shock when you go into top-tier jets and you see everything is different.
Well, the F-86 Sabres themselves have to fly a very particular style, and people who fly F-86s, generally that's what they fly a lot of because it's almost like a War Thunder lifestyle with the F-86 pilots. The F-86 and the MiG-15s have a particular way of flying There's a right time maneuver and there's a bad time maneuver. And you have to kind of really learn and feel out how to get the most out of your speed, your altitude, and your maneuverability. And if you cross that line, you will get punished either by another player or the plane itself will decide it no longer likes you.
Yeah, if you're just starting to research the top tier American jets like the F-104 and the F-4 Phantom, and you've flown the Sabres before, this aircraft may be more targeted for you. But for someone who's just starting the game, this is not. Steer clear of this aircraft.
That being said, it's a buy from me with the disclaimer that you know what you're getting into. Real quickly before we wrap up, there is one aircraft that is not for sale right now, but if it does pop up during this holiday sale, I would say grab it immediately. And that would be the P-47M. The P-47M was a upgraded version of a P-47D that was designed to counter things like the buzz bombs. The aircraft was delivered to England somewhere around January of 1945, and due to technical teething issues, it saw flight and service about April of 1945, so only saw about a month of World War II, but it is fun. That P-47M, you feel the extra power. And it is great in Air RB, and it's fantastic in Ground Forces RB. And if it pops up for a couple days on like a Black Friday sale or something, I don't know, I'm just saying, if you do see it pop up, it'd be 100% buy for me. It's one of my favorite U.S. aircraft. So thank you for watching this installment of the Premium Buying Guide. Up next will be the German premium aircraft. And like I said before, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, complaints, feel free to leave a YouTube comment below. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.
Join the Gun Pod Union.
There is no gun pod union, Ham. You've been shut down.
No.
No unions.
Teddy Roosevelt, no.